Imagine a future where your identity is reduced to a brand, where refusing to conform means facing the wrath of a ruthless global regime. Now, open your eyes to a reality where this dystopia is not just a fiction, but the terrifying scenario that millions face on a daily basis. But what if I told you that, in the shadows of this oppression, a light of hope still shines? That in the forgotten peripheries and abandoned camps, a network of resistance is growing, fueled by unwavering faith and fierce determination? Get ready to dive into a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural blurs, where biblical plagues come to life, and the heavens become a cosmic battlefield. This isn't just a story of persecution and survival. It's a journey that will question everything you believe about faith, humanity, and the very fabric of reality. In the coming scenes, you will witness the awakening of a collective consciousness, the emergence of unlikely heroes, and the unfolding of ancient prophecies that echo through the ages until this crucial moment. We are about to embark on an odyssey that will challenge your mind, touch your soul, and perhaps change the way you see the world around you forever. Get ready for the final reveal. The stage is set, the fate of humanity hangs in the balance, and the countdown to doomsday has begun. Are you ready to face the truth? The persecution and execution of those who refuse to receive the mark of the beast not only reveal the brutality of the New World regime, but also expose the deep fissures in the fabric of society. As public executions become more frequent, a subtle change begins to take place in the collective psyche. The fear, initially overwhelming, begins to give way to a silent indignation, a growing discomfort that permeates all social strata. In the shadows of the cities, on the forgotten outskirts, and in the abandoned fields, a network of resistance begins to form. Those who have rejected the label find refuge in clandestine communities, true oases of humanity in a desert of oppression. These communities are not just hiding places, they are incubators of a new form of society, based on mutual cooperation, shared faith, and the preservation of values that the outside world seems to have forgotten. Meanwhile, at the heart of the system, an internal struggle is beginning to unfold. Not all those who accepted the mark did so out of conviction. Many were driven by fear, the need to survive, or simple inertia. As they witnessed the brutality of the regime against the resistors, a growing crisis of conscience begins to set in. Government officials secretly question their orders. Neighbors who once blew the whistle now turn a blind eye to suspicious activity. A network of silent sympathizers begins to form within the system itself. This complex dynamic creates a scenario of constant tension. The regime, sensing the growing threat to its authority, responds with more violence, more surveillance, more control. But each act of brutality only serves to strengthen the resolve of the resistant and to sow more doubt among the resigned. Public executions, once seen as demonstrations of power, begin to have the opposite effect. Each martyr becomes a symbol, each act of defiance a source of inspiration. Stories of courage in the face of death circulate in whispers, strengthening the faith of the hidden and planting seeds of doubt in the hearts of those who gave in. In the midst of this maelstrom, a profound transformation takes place in the nature of faith and spirituality. Deprived of their traditional places of worship, persecuted for their beliefs, the resistant rediscover a purer and more intense form of spiritual connection. Faith ceases to be an external practice and becomes an inner force, a source of resistance and hope that no persecution can extinguish. This spiritual renewal is not limited to those who have rejected the mark. Even among those who have accepted it, a desperate search for meaning emerges, a need to reconcile their actions with their deepest beliefs. Secret study groups emerge, exploring sacred texts in search of answers, trying to understand how they got to this point and whether there is still hope of redemption. As the persecution intensifies, a subtle change occurs in the nature of the resistance. What began as an act of individual survival evolves into a collective movement with a greater purpose. The resistors are no longer just fighting for their own lives, but for the very soul of humanity. Every act of kindness, every gesture of mutual aid, every moment of courage becomes an affirmation of human dignity in the face of a system that seeks to deny it. This struggle is not just physical or even spiritual. It is a battle for the very definition of what it means to be human. In a world where a person's value is reduced to a digital code, where conformity is the currency of survival, those who resist are affirming a fundamental truth, that there is something in the human spirit that transcends systems and controls, something that no brand can capture or contain. Stories of resistance take on an almost mythical quality. Accounts of miraculous escapes, acts of heroic sacrifice, moments of epiphany in the midst of despair are passed down by word of mouth, growing in meaning with each repetition. These narratives are not mere distractions. They are the fabric that holds the community of resistors together, reminding them of why they fight and inspiring them to continue, no matter how dark the night. Meanwhile, the regime faces its own internal challenges. Maintaining such a comprehensive surveillance and control system requires immense resources. The economy, already weakened by the exclusion of a significant part of the population, is beginning to show signs of strain. The promise of prosperity and security that led so many to accept the brand is beginning to ring increasingly hollow. As the conflict intensifies, a nagging question begins to echo in everyone's minds. How long can this system sustain itself? History teaches us that no regime, no matter how powerful, can suppress the human spirit indefinitely. But the cost of this eventual downfall, in terms of lives lost and human suffering, is incalculable. In the midst of this scenario of oppression and resistance, the eyes of many turn to the heavens, looking for signs of divine intervention. The ancient prophecies, which spoke of judgments and salvation, take on new urgency. Every natural event, every political change, every technological advance is scrutinized for prophetic significance. This atmosphere of apocalyptic expectation adds a new layer of complexity to the situation. For the resistance, the belief in an eventual divine deliverance serves as a source of strength and perseverance. For the regime, it represents a constant threat, a focus of resistance that cannot be eliminated by brute force. The persecution and execution of those who reject the mark of the beast is not just an act of political oppression. It is a direct attack on the essence of what makes us human. It is an attempt to eradicate not just dissent, but the very capacity for moral choice. Yet, paradoxically, it is through this extreme ordeal that humanity rediscovers its inner strength, its capacity for compassion, and its connection with the divine. As this conflict unfolds, it becomes clear that what is at stake is much more than the fate of individuals or even nations. It is a battle for the soul of humanity, a final test of our ability to maintain our humanity in the face of systematic dehumanization. Those who resist are not just victims. They are keepers of a sacred flame, bearers of a truth that the world desperately needs reminding of. That there are values that transcend physical survival. That human dignity cannot be codified or controlled. And that, in the end, it is our capacity for moral choice that defines us as human beings. As the night of persecution deepens, those who maintain their faith and integrity become beacons of hope, living reminders that, even in the darkest circumstances, the light of humanity can continue to shine. Their resistance is not just an act of self-preservation, but a testimony to future generations, proof that, in the face of ultimate evil, courage and compassion can prevail. The ultimate fate of these resistors and of the world they fight to preserve remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: through their struggle, they are writing a crucial chapter in human history, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of faith in the face of extreme adversity. As the world awaits the outcome of this cosmic conflict, the actions of those who refuse to bow to tyranny continue to inspire and challenge, reminding us all of the transformative power of individual choice and the eternal importance of remaining true to our deepest convictions, no matter the cost. As persecution intensifies, and the world seems to plunge ever deeper into darkness, an unexpected phenomenon begins to emerge: the divine judgments and plagues. These events, prophesied for millennia, are beginning to manifest themselves in ways that defy human understanding and shake the structures of established power. The first sign of these judgments comes in the form of a mysterious affliction that affects only those who have received the mark of the beast. Painful and persistent ulcers begin to appear on their bodies, resistant to any known medical treatment. This phenomenon causes panic among the marked and perplexity in the scientific community. Hospitals become overloaded, and the health system, already under pressure from the persecution of the unmarked, begins to collapse. While world leaders struggle to explain and contain this first plague, a series of unprecedented natural disasters begin to sweep the planet. Oceans and rivers turn to blood, causing a global water crisis and devastating marine ecosystems. The sun seems to intensify its heat, causing droughts in some regions and melting glaciers in others, leading to catastrophic floods. These events not only defy scientific explanation, but also begin to erode confidence in the global system that the mark of the beast represents. The promises of security and prosperity made by the world regime ring increasingly hollow in the face of nature's apparent wrath. For the resistance, hidden away in their clandestine communities, these events are seen as a confirmation of their faith. Ancient prophecies come to life before their eyes, strengthening their resolve and giving them hope in the midst of despair. They interpret each new disaster as a sign that their deliverance is near, that divine power is intervening directly in human history. However, the reaction of the world regime to these events is to intensify the persecution even further. In a desperate effort to maintain control, the leaders attribute the catastrophes to the influence of unmarked rebels. Massive propaganda campaigns are launched, painting the resistors as saboteurs and terrorists responsible for the plagues and disasters. This narrative, although absurd to many, finds fertile ground in the fear and confusion that dominate the population. The hunt for the unmarked becomes even fiercer, with angry mobs sometimes taking the law into their own hands. The world becomes a battleground, not only between the regime and the resistance, but between those who seek a scapegoat for their suffering and those who see through the lies. In the midst of this chaos, a profound transformation takes place in the collective psyche of humanity. The certainties of the modern world, the dominance of science over nature, the infallibility of technology, the promise of continuous progress, are shaken to their foundations. People are forced to confront realities that go beyond their rational understanding, leading to a global resurgence of spirituality and the search for meaning. This spiritual quest is not limited to the resistant. Even among those who have accepted the mark, there is an awakening of consciousness. Many are beginning to question their choices, to seek answers beyond what the system can offer. Clandestine groups studying the ancient prophecies emerge even in the highest circles of power, with government officials and business leaders meeting in secret to decipher the meaning of the events they are witnessing. As the plagues intensify, an increasingly clear division is forming in society. On one side are those who cling desperately to the system, seeking technological and scientific solutions to the disasters, denying any spiritual significance in the events. On the other are those who see in these events the hand of the divine, a call to repentance and change. This division is not only ideological, but also physical. The cities, the centers of power of the world regime, become increasingly inhospitable as the plagues intensify. Multitudes begin to flee to rural areas, seeking refuge from the catastrophes and a more self-sufficient lifestyle. This mass exodus further destabilizes the global economy and weakens the regime's control over the population. In the midst of this chaos, communities of resistance emerge as beacons of hope and stability. Their simple ways of life and unwavering faith make them more resilient in the face of catastrophe. They not only survive, but thrive, offering help and refuge to all who seek it, regardless of whether they have the mark or not. This generosity in the face of adversity is beginning to change the public perception of the resilient. Those who were once seen as dangerous rebels are now seen by many as guardians of an ancient and vital wisdom. Stories of their compassion and courage spread, inspiring others to question the system and seek a more authentic and meaningful way of life. Meanwhile, at the heart of the world regime, panic is setting in. The leaders, faced with disasters they cannot control and an increasingly restless population, resort to ever more desperate measures. Surveillance is intensified, punishments become more severe, and efforts to find a cure for the plagues consume immense resources. However, the more the regime tries to tighten its grip, the more it slips through its fingers. Each new plague, each new disaster, only serves to expose the impotence of the system in the face of forces beyond its comprehension and control. As the world plunges deeper into chaos, a sense of expectation begins to form. Many feel they are living through the final moments of an era, witnessing the unfolding of a cosmic drama prophesied millennia ago. The line between the natural and the supernatural becomes increasingly blurred, and people from all walks of life are forced to confront fundamental questions about the nature of reality, the purpose of existence, and the fate of humanity. In this apocalyptic scenario, individual choices take on tremendous weight. Each person is faced with the most crucial decision of his or her life: to persist in faith in the face of relentless persecution, or to give in to the system in exchange for an increasingly empty promise of security. The divine judgments and plagues are not just natural catastrophes, they are a final test of humanity, a call to spiritual and moral awakening. They expose the weaknesses of a system built on control and conformity, revealing the enduring strength of values such as faith, compassion, and courage. As the world approaches what many believe to be its prophetic climax, one truth becomes clear. The real battlefield is not in the physical world, but in the heart and soul of each individual. It is on this intimate and personal terrain that the fate of humanity will finally be decided. The stage is set for the final act of this cosmic drama. The forces of control and oppression, represented by the system of the Mark of the Beast, are on a collision course with the forces of faith and freedom, embodied in the resistors. And hanging over it all, the shadow of the divine judgments, reminding everyone that there are powers and purposes beyond human comprehension at stake. While the world waits with bated breath for the outcome of this epic conflict, one thing is certain: whatever the result, humanity will emerge transformed. The trials faced, the choices made, and the truths revealed in this period will leave an indelible mark on the collective consciousness of the human race, shaping the course of generations to come. As we approach the climax of this apocalyptic narrative, attention turns to a place of profound symbolic and spiritual significance, the temple in heaven. This concept, mentioned in ancient prophecies, takes on a new and urgent relevance in the context of the events that are unfolding on earth. The temple in heaven is not a physical structure in the conventional sense, but a metaphysical representation of divine presence and judgment. In the prophetic tradition, it symbolizes the point of intersection between the heavenly and earthly realms, the place where divine decisions are made and from where final judgments emanate. As the plagues continue to ravage the earth, many begin to interpret these events as direct manifestations of activity in the heavenly temple. Visions and mystical experiences become increasingly common, with people from all backgrounds reporting dreams and visions of a heavenly sanctuary from where angels depart to execute divine judgments. These experiences are not limited to traditional religious circles. Even those who previously considered themselves skeptical or non-religious are beginning to have encounters that challenge their rational understanding of the world. Scientists report unexplained anomalies in their instruments, coinciding with the moments of greatest intensity of the plagues. World leaders admit, in candid moments, to feeling powerless in the face of forces that seem to operate beyond the realm of the natural. At the center of these events, 7 angelic figures emerge as executors of divine judgments. Each of them is associated with a specific plague, their actions in the heavenly realm being reflected in catastrophes on earth. The release of each new plague is preceded by signs in the sky that baffle even the most skeptical. Unexplained astronomical phenomena, auroras of colors never seen before, and stellar configurations that defy the laws of physics. For the resistant, these manifestations serve as a powerful confirmation of their faith. They see in these events not only the fulfillment of ancient prophecies, but also a call to ultimate perseverance. Their communities become centers of prophetic interpretation, where the ancient scriptures are studied with renewed fervor in the light of current events. However, the reaction of the world regime to these phenomena is one of even more intense denial and repression. Scientific explanations are fabricated for each new event, no matter how implausible. The state-controlled media works tirelessly to discredit any spiritual interpretation of the events, labeling them as dangerous superstition and a threat to public order. But as the plagues intensify and the heavenly signs become impossible to ignore, a crisis of faith sets in at the heart of the regime itself. High-ranking officials begin to defect, unable to reconcile what they are witnessing with the official narrative. Some openly join the resistance, bringing with them valuable information about the system's plans and weaknesses. This mass defection creates a dilemma for the regime. On the one hand, they can no longer deny the reality of the supernatural events taking place. On the other, admitting the truth would mean completely undermining the basis of their power. In a desperate move, they try to co-opt the spiritual narrative, presenting themselves as intermediaries between humanity and heavenly forces. This attempt at spiritual appropriation, however, is met with skepticism by the majority of the population. After years of atheistic and materialistic propaganda, the regime's sudden turn towards the spiritual sounds false and opportunistic. This leads to an even greater erosion of its authority and legitimacy. Meanwhile, the focus of world attention is increasingly turning to the sky. Astronomical observatories report unexplained activity in deep space. Some claim to have detected massive structures moving towards Earth, although these claims are quickly suppressed by the authorities. As the sixth plague is released, a dramatic change takes place in the spiritual atmosphere of the planet. A palpable sense of expectation and dread settles over the whole of humanity. Even those who have tried to ignore previous events can no longer deny that something of cosmic proportions is about to occur. It is at this moment of maximum tension that the seventh angel prepares to pour out the last cup of divine wrath. The whole world seems to be holding its breath, aware that it is on the verge of an irreversible transformation. The ancient prophecies speak of a thunderous voice coming from the temple in heaven, declaring, "It is done," signaling the end of one era and the beginning of another. As we await the final outcome of this cosmic drama, one truth becomes clear. Humanity is facing not just a global crisis or even a series of natural disasters, but a final judgment that will test the essence of who we are as a species. The choices made at this crucial moment, of faith or fear, of resistance or submission, will determine not only the individual fate of each person, but the future of humanity itself. The temple in heaven, far from being an abstract concept or a distant symbol, becomes the focal point of all human existence. It represents the ultimate reality that everyone must face, a call to account before forces that transcend our limited understanding. As the seventh angel prepares to pour out the last bowl of divine wrath, we find ourselves on the brink of an irreversible transformation. The temple in heaven, once an abstract concept, now becomes the focal point of all human existence. This is not just the end of an era, but the beginning of something beyond our comprehension. The choices we have made, the battles we have fought, and the faith we have kept have brought us to this crucial moment. While the world holds its breath, awaiting the outcome of this cosmic drama, one truth remains. The human spirit, tested to its limits, has proven to be more resilient and powerful than we ever imagined. What comes next? How will this epic journey shape the future of humanity? These are questions that only time can answer. But the conversation doesn't end here. This is just the beginning of a larger dialogue. What thoughts and emotions has this narrative aroused in you? What reflections on faith, free will, and the fate of humanity have arisen in your mind? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective is valuable and may illuminate aspects of this story that others haven't yet considered. And if this journey has touched you in any way, if it has piqued your curiosity or fueled your imagination, consider joining our community. Subscribe to the channel to continue exploring the mysteries of the universe, the complexities of faith, and the depths of the human experience. Together, we can unlock the secrets of the cosmos and perhaps, in the process, discover something profound about ourselves. Until the next chapter in this cosmic saga, stay tuned and keep the faith. The future awaits, and it promises to be more extraordinary than we can imagine.